Hi, I'm Rebecca Ball-Carcel. Let's talk about one of my favorite poems, The Gift by Lee. I was lucky enough to hear him read this poem aloud at a reading in Texas like 10 years ago. So I know this won't be quite the same, but I'll read it now, and then we'll discuss some of the techniques he's using and what his themes might be here. The Gift. To pull the metal splinter from my palm, my father recited a story in a low voice. I watched his lovely face and not the blade. Before the story ended, he'd removed the iron sliver I thought I'd die from. I can't remember the tale, but hear his voice still, a well of dark water, a prayer. And I recall his hands, 2 measures of tenderness he laid against my face, the flames of discipline he raised above my head. Had you entered that afternoon, you would have thought you saw a man planting something in a boy's palm, a silver tear, a tiny flame. Had you followed that boy, you would have arrived here, where I bend over my wife's right hand. Look how I shave her thumbnail down so carefully she feels no pain. Watch as I lift the splinter out. I was 7 when my father took my hand like this, and I did not hold that shard between my fingers and think, metal that will bury me. Christen it, little assassin, or going deep for my heart. And I did not lift up my wound and cry, death visited here. I did what a child does when he's given something to keep. I kissed my father. So it's a tender poem that shows a beautiful moment between father and son, and then shows how the ripples of that moment affect the adult child, now between husband and wife, as the child has grown and now passes down the gifts of the father. And there we are, the title of The Gift. What is the gift? Certainly the gift is literally the splinter. The father pulls the splinter out of the palm of the boy and gives it to him. But the father is giving him so much more. It says that, well, he had a lovely face, and this whole idea of telling a story as he removes the splinter shows a lot of compassion and wisdom. It's such a gentle way to try to deal with a traumatic experience, a little 7-year-old worrying about his splinter. So the father is very wise in how he approaches this. He tells a story. I can't remember the tale, but hear his voice still. A well of dark water. So here we get a metaphor. Well of dark water, that's the father's voice. So what are the associations we have with wells? Well, wells are places of nourishment, places where you pull up the stuff of life, the continual blessing of the well. That's what the father's voice is like. It keeps giving and giving, it nourishes. And what else? The voice is like a prayer. Well, this makes this moment almost sacred now. And the father in Lee's real life, his real father, was a minister. He also taught the family a lot of Taoist philosophy and disciplines and practice. But he was a Christian minister as well. So to have the father's voice be a prayer, that fits. It fits autobiographically, but more importantly, it fits as because a father is God to the child, is everything, is the source of wisdom, is the source of safety. And here the father's voice is like a prayer. And I recall his hands, 2 measures of tenderness laid against my face. So his hands are tenderness, and then flames of discipline he raised above my head. Now definitely we have an allusion that is a reference to Pentecost, which is a Christian holiday that celebrates when the disciples of Jesus were visited by the Holy Spirit. And the visual for that is flames above their heads. That's what was talked about. So the flames above the boy's head are flames of discipline. But definitely we have another religious overtone, as we did with the word prayer. So the boy is somehow inspired, spire, relating to spirit, inspired by the Father and changed in some kind of similar way to how the disciples were changed when the Spirit of God came upon them or through them. The Spirit of the Father is here with the boy. And he carries that, the stillness, the tenderness, the wisdom, the inspiration, the discipline. He carries that with him always. So that is the real gift. Besides the splinter being the literal gift, we have this emotional gift that the child takes forward into his relationships in his adult life when he helps his wife with a splinter in her thumb. So one of the techniques here is metaphor. Liang Li is able to show us the importance of the Father by comparing the Father's voice to a prayer or to a well and all of that. So these metaphors reveal the importance of the Father. Another thing that's going on, technically, is sound play. Now, this doesn't have sing-songy rhyme, so what do I mean by sound play? I mean repeated consonant sounds like L, as in pull, metal, splinter, palm. Those all occur in the first line. Lots of L's. And then you have, later on, L's again, his voice still, a well, that repetition. Liang Li loves to sprinkle the sounds across the lines. There's one other place, planting something in a boy's palm, P and P. And then I want to also point out that we have this time technique going on. First we're in the past, then we're with the wife, then we're back in the past, and you can do that in a poem. Had you entered that afternoon, you would have thought you saw a man planting something in a boy's palm. So, and also, again, we have figurative language. But here we are in the time period with the boy, 7 years old. And then, had you followed that boy, you would have arrived here where I bend over my wife's right hand. So suddenly we understand, wait, that was in the past, now we're with the wife, and we understand the importance of the past, how it relates to the present moment. So that's kind of cool. What else is going on? We have the metaphor of the silver tear and a tiny flame. He says that watching the sliver be taken out, if you had just walked in and seen that, you would have thought it was the opposite. Not something being taken out, but something being planted in the boy. And like we've talked about, things are being planted in the boy. Wisdom, discipline, tenderness. And he says it would have seemed like a silver tear being planted or a tiny flame. So again, we have this fire image, but we also have water, a little tear, and a tiny flame. It's an interesting combination, water and fire, emotion and spirit, perhaps. He says it looks like a silver tear, a tiny flame. So planting a tear, what does that mean? What do you associate with tears? Sadness. But yes, this is a sad moment, and at the same time, the flame, purification, passion, spirit. So we have both the sadness and the strength coming in that tear and flame that's being planted in the boy's palm. It's cool. You can think even more about that, but technically speaking, yes, we have more metaphors. And as we go further in the poem, I see another sound device, lift, splinter. The I sounds, and then when he says all the things he didn't call the splinter, I didn't call it an assassin, I didn't call it or going deep for my heart, he doesn't feel triumphant about the splinter death visited here. He's not getting all boastful about it. Instead, he just wants to kiss his father because he knows he's been given a gift. The splinter itself, plus all of these emotional gifts that we've talked about. And he ends with that, I kissed my father. So at the end, the boy is giving back a gift. This appreciation is shown in the kiss. So he's receiving gifts and he's giving gifts. And that's one of the greatest things about the poem, is the boy, when he receives, is moved to reciprocate and give. to his father, and then later to the wife. He passes on the gift. Well, I hope you're enjoying this poem as much as I am. I'll stop for now here, but I hope you'll go find the poem and read it, and try to find Lee Young Lee reading it online, because you'll see on YouTube that he's out there. Well, join me for another poem someday. Bye-bye.